All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our teen workforce panel. Tonight we are focusing on AmeriCorps, and we have MJ and we have Darcy. So I am gonna hand it over, first of all, to Darcy, and she's gonna just introduce herself a little bit, and then when she's done, MJ will go ahead and she'll introduce herself and maybe just give a little bit of a brief description of your role as an AmeriCorps or an AmeriCorps VISTA. So we'll start with Darcy.
Everyone, my name is Darcey Gans. I am a member of the Conservation Education team at Burr Oak. I'm specifically the Conservation Education Specialist for Burr Oak Land Trust, and I am serving a year-long AmeriCorps term. I graduated from the University of Minnesota just in May 2020, and by graduated, I mean they mailed me my degree, which I guess still works. We'll talk about it a lot more, but we do a lot of different things in my position. It's really diverse, like what we take on as kind of the social end of environmental conservation in Iowa City, as well as I also want to say that my program is under the state national AmeriCorps program, which is different from the VISTA and NCC program that also exists in AmeriCorps. So that's a super brief intro of me. Oh, my background is in wildlife and conservation biology. That was what the degree I got mailed says on it. That's my little intro.
Awesome.
Sounds great. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So my name is MJ. I'm currently serving as a patron services specialist at the Cedar Rapids Public Library. Prior to that position, I served as a AmeriCorps VISTA at the Cedar Rapids Public Library, and my title was to be a VISTA Literacy Programs Coordinator. So I did serve 2 terms, and so I served as an AmeriCorps VISTA, which is different from the program that Darcy did. So that's what we'll be talking about today.
All right. Well, my first question to both of you is, when and how did you get into AmeriCorps/AmeriCorps VISTA? Are there age requirements? Can you do it right out of high school? Can you wait until after college? When do you think is the best time to join, if maybe you joined not right out of college? So maybe Darcy, you could talk a little bit about that, and then MJ.
Yeah. And just to clarify, so it's kind of a good comparison. MJ finished her AmeriCorps term already, and I'm still in it. So different perspectives.
Yes.
So I really found AmeriCorps. It was something that kept coming up on job boards. My background is in natural resources, but there's a couple of specific environmental natural resource job boards, and a lot of the time you'll see AmeriCorps positions come up. I also started dating a boy my junior/senior year who was doing an AmeriCorps program in Minnesota, which kind of just brought a lot more awareness to me, because I had been told about the Peace Corps, but I didn't know what AmeriCorps was and what kind of drew me to this position. So obviously I recently graduated, but this isn't my first position since graduating. I actually worked as a bat research technician in southern Indiana. But the nature of wildlife jobs and lots of natural resource jobs is they're often very seasonal. And obviously when it's spring and summer, that's when you're going to get the largest amount of jobs. And then it becomes like a much smaller, more competitive pool in winter. That, in addition to the fact there's a pandemic and there's a lot, and it's caused a lot of field research, because my ideal goal would be able to find a way to do education and field work. So I need more field work experience. Ideally, so if we're looking at a smaller competitive field, and then on top of that, a pandemic that's eliminated a lot of those positions, like people just running with bare bones type of staff. And after working in the humid, often sucky conditions of southern Indiana, and don't get me wrong, I loved it. I was like, I think I want an office job. And AmeriCorps provided me a way I felt like I could gain those skills while still, help keeping making sure I had income and could help pay off my loans, because I have many loans.
So in some ways, my path is actually kind of similar to Darcy's, in some ways a little bit different, but likewise, AmeriCorps was not my first position outside of college. outside of college, I worked at a customer care center. So I did customer service for about 3 or so years. Decided that the corporate world just wasn't really what I was looking for. It wasn't really being as fulfilling as what I was hoping. And I wasn't specifically looking for AmeriCorps, so I didn't really know too much about AmeriCorps to begin with before applying. And sort of randomly stumbled upon a job opening that happened to be with AmeriCorps and sort of learned about it backwards. So I kind of applied for the position first and then sort of found out what all that entails. It was actually a really cool experience to get to discover what AmeriCorps is, what it stands for. But in terms of getting into AmeriCorps, generally speaking, for a VISTA program, you do need to be at least 18 years of age and have either your high school diploma or your GED. But beyond that, there's no upper limit. So we have a lot of people that are fresh out of college that are just looking for something to really get started, get to learn some new skills, get to make some really cool connections and get some experiences. Or you also have people that are later in life looking to just expand their knowledge or like maybe seek some more fulfillment or get some more stability. There's a whole number of reasons why you might decide to join, but we're pretty inclusive about that.
And I should just clarify, because I totally forgot to answer that part of the question. The same is true for state and national programs, that you basically just need to be 18 years old. You need to have your GED or your high school diploma. And like, you don't even, the great thing about AmeriCorps is you don't necessarily need to have a background in that area in order to do it. Like, for example, she doesn't work directly with me, but we have an AmeriCorps leader for the stewardship crew at Burr Oak, who was an English major. Well, she teaches chainsaw training and like invasive and tree identification now. So it has nothing to do with her background, but she's gaining a lot of skills and, you know, taking on new leadership for that. So I just wanted to also piggyback on that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. For Alicia, who just joined us, welcome. What you may have missed is that we just did brief introductions. So Darcy is with Burr Oak and she is an AmeriCorps. She's serving right now, and MJ is, I know her as MJ, so it's hard to say, Maria Jose. MJ she's completed her AmeriCorps VISTA and she served at the Cedar Rapids Public Library. So now you're all caught up. So the thing I like about you two is you have similar programs, although one is the VISTA and one is AmeriCorps, but you do totally different things. So maybe starting again in our same order, Darcy, can you give everybody just a couple of nuggets, an overview of what AmeriCorps means to you in your position, and then MJ can do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I want to just forewarn everyone that I actually was searching out. Maria talked about that she kind of applied for AmeriCorps and then learned what it was. I tried to learn what AmeriCorps was as I was applying, and I'll just be honest that AmeriCorps does a terrible job of defining itself. And it's understandable in some ways because it's a really broad program, but essentially it's a program in which 18 and up individuals can apply, and especially for the state and national programs that I'm in, they can cover a huge array of things, but they're all ways that you're serving your community, either through environmental, social, educational, healthcare, even just like government agencies. There's all different things that you can do pretty much every area, which is just really incredible. And it's really unique because it's very focused on, career it's focused on providing career and development and support to different individuals, but you're also serving your community. So I would say it's very focused on benefit rather than like cost analysis and making a real change. So my specific program with Burr Oak is actually a really new AmeriCorps program. So like I said, AmeriCorps can be with kind of public government agencies, or it can be with private nonprofits. So Burr Oak Land Trust is a nonprofit land trust here in Iowa City. It has two teams: the stewardship team, which are as stewardships in sense.
Yay, tech problems. It happens. In the meantime, if you'd like me to hop in and kind of give them my 2 cents, I can do that as well.
You bet, yeah.
All right, so one thing that Darcy kind of touched upon is that AmeriCorps is kind of a broad concept. And it can be a little bit confusing, especially because there is, you know, as Darcy mentioned, the national program, there's the VISTA program, there's a variety of other programs. So it's a little bit confusing to understand what each program does specifically. One of the best ways that I found to identify VISTA and how VISTA is a little bit separate from other programs is that VISTA is a national service program designed to alleviate poverty specifically through indirect service. So instead of directly volunteering and actually going and serving at various different events or things of that nature, the role of a VISTA is to try to help increase capacity at an organization that is already maybe, you know, they have limited resources or they already have teams working on other projects. So you come in, you help provide the structure, you help provide the piloting resources necessary to help them work from behind the scenes instead of being in the front wearing the t-shirt and all the pictures. You know, it's a little bit different kind of work where you don't get to always see the results as directly, which is one of the downsides of that, where a lot of that is more long-term projects that you kind of get to start the seeds of. But it is really cool in the sense that you're helping organizations that otherwise wouldn't be able to tackle on new programs or reach new partners or make new relationships, and just really helping them push to the maximum limits of what they can do and really serve their community. Welcome back.
Yeah, well, Marie, like MJ does a really good job of like kind of actually defining one of the key differences between state and national AmeriCorps programs and VISTA, which is it's very much, I mean, and it will depend on your AmeriCorps position. That's the problem of state and national. It's just the dynamics are almost endless for it, but it's a lot more of those positions are going to be about boots on the ground, get your hands dirty, which is part of what attracted me to it. So like I said, our stewardship crew is out, they're chainsawing, they're planting seeds, they're doing prescribed burns. The education team, we're creating materials, we're doing lectures, we're networking, hence how Burr Oak started its partnership with the library. So even though like maybe that's not necessarily getting my hands covered in mud, I'm still on the ground doing something and, you know, legitimately like making connections and reaching out in ways that are really important to the goal of the education team, which is to connect people in the Iowa City area with the environment around them.
So I was wondering, when both of you were looking at AmeriCorps, did you think about Peace Corps? And for our young people who are thinking about AmeriCorps, can you do you know the distinction between, I mean, Peace Corps, is it always you go abroad? Are they similar based? I mean, I don't know if you know this is a little bit of a kipple question, but did you guys think about Peace Corps as well as AmeriCorps, or were you thinking about just kind of seeing what you could find locally?
So I don't remember this, and I was like, I should look this up, and then I didn't because like I was like, I remember it well enough. But I wasn't like, interestingly, in college, in one of my career development classes for my major, we had people from Peace Corps come talk to us about their experience. And I do believe that is the main distinction, is one is international versus like national. And I didn't think about Peace Corps personally, just because it's not that I'm not open to exploring more, connecting with more people. It's also just, it's a much more significant commitment, like what you have got to like be willing to commit to your term there. And there are a lot of benefits that come from that too, like sometimes slightly more than AmeriCorps programs, but that's the main difference to the Peace Corps. I do know that it also has a wide array of opportunities, including in natural resources like me, but a lot of it is also like, you know, that will be more in different areas that are underserved, like ensuring clean water, ensuring proper like cooking and sustainability and things like that, and infrastructure. But if you're willing to commit to it, I'm told it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would say, I think one of the interesting things about AmeriCorps is regardless of which of the programs you decide to pursue, there is a huge array of different types of sectors and interests. So I know Darcy's mentioned a lot of different types of positions within national service. With AmeriCorps VISTA, there's also a ton of different types of angles. There's people that are interested in food scarcity or food security. I was focused on literacy, other teams were focused on other things. So there's a lot of different focuses. And likewise, Peace Corps also has different focuses in terms of education or environment or youth development or all these different types of things. So regardless of what your interest is, you'll be able to find something that appeals to you regardless of what program you're looking at. I think the biggest difference between the programs is the way in which we practice our service. And so I talked about how, national program, there's a lot of direct service. VISTA, there's a lot of indirect service. And then Peace Corps kind of takes it to another level where you're actually traveling to sites and traveling to areas that really need that help and kind of targeting and being a little bit more intentional with that assistance. So in my case, I was specifically looking for something local, so that wouldn't have really worked for me. And I just wanted something where I could kind of apply some of the skills that I learned in a more corporate environment, and that actually transitioned really well to kind of going in behind the scenes and doing a lot of work for the library. So that was a really great fit for me. But regardless of what your interest is, depending on which style works best for you, you'll be able to find something that works.
The other thing I can add on, like that you made me think of, for Peace Corps that I know is it's often a lot more individual placements. So you may have multiple people who are, like on your team sort of, but they're all placed in different areas of a country or different areas of a city. So you're kind of wearing a lot more hats and like kind of being out there on your own. But yeah, I kind of like, in terms of location, I wasn't set on a location. I did want to try to escape the Midwest, not because I don't like the Midwest, but simply because I wanted to get a new experience, since that's just where all my natural resource training has been. But for a bunch of reasons it didn't work out. Just one additional program that's not NCC, VISTA, or Peace Corps is the ACE program, which is the American Conservation Experience. It's a little more competitive, but it's obviously more natural resource based, because that's what I'm into. But it's often working in really cool spaces like national parks, really like important wildlife and landscape management areas. So that's also another option. Like there was one in the Smoky Mountains that I was like one of 500 people who applied for. I did not get picked. I'm sad because I would have loved to be in the Smoky Mountains, but like it's also a good option to keep in mind.
Yeah. And you're in the prairies.
I come from Illinois, and I was like, how can I find like that perfect blend between Illinois and Minnesota? And I was like, Iowa, nailed it.
Every cloud has an Iowa lining. Do you have to be 18 to take part in that ACE program as well?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So you've got your education, you've got your gig at AmeriCorps/AmeriCorps VISTA, and you're done. What would you say is the most rewarding part of your specific time so far? I know, Darcy, you're not finished yet, so I'm sure you have something to share. I would like to think that you've had some rewarding experiences.
Yeah, I definitely have. I'll personally rewarding because honestly, I just feel very lucky to have met the team I do. I live with a bunch of people from the stewardship team, and they're like so technically we work for the same people, but we don't get to work together as much, and I love them. But especially when I first moved to Iowa, like I had just gotten a car, I was responsible for my own insurance, like it was like all of these things. And just moving to a place that like I didn't, even though I was near places I knew with people I knew, I didn't have anyone in the immediate area, like just really supportive coworkers that didn't make me feel like I was just some special version of a volunteer, that they made me feel like I was a respected employee, and who pushed me to get out of that mindset of a student/kid of like, you need to be able to, like you make the executive decision, don't keep looking over your shoulder. I think that's been really rewarding because it's built a lot of confidence. Getting to interact with the community as much as we can digitally has been great. I've gotten some amazing career development from it. I'm going to learn how to band birds and get be able to count as part of my hours. I've gotten to work with raptors. I've gotten to do so many incredible things, and feeling like since I am part of a new program. So the reason that part of why I'm here, besides being a local AmeriCorps member, is that I actually reached out to the library this fall because I wanted to have better venues like, I wanted Borough to feel like an established part of this community, and not, because most people don't know about us, which is sad. And be able to like use the more established platform of the library, and also provide the library of content. And it's been incredibly rewarding, because that's been the main way I've been able to interact with the public, to be able to have, to see people be really interested and want to attend events, and feeling like, that I am actually getting that community impact to happen. Even if it's just like, I'm just pushing the needle a little bit, the fact that I'm pushing any needle at all is really amazing.
Right. And I can definitely vouch for Darcy's programs, because I've helped facilitate her bird nesting and animal tracking, and it's fascinating. So those videos, I'm told, are coming very soon. So as soon as they're on our YouTube, I will let you know.
Thanks, Victoria.
So many things that are rewarding. It's so hard to make a list, but on a personal level, one of the most rewarding aspects of working through AmeriCorps VISTA at the Cedar Rapids Public Library was just getting to know the library and all that it does for the community. Previously, I'd been to the public library maybe once in my entire time that I'd lived in Cedar Rapids, and I'd lived there for like 4 or 5 years by then, I think. And I was suddenly getting to look at it with these brand new eyes, where I didn't realize just how much it does for the community and how many services there are beyond just checking out books and looking at movies. There are so many public services that are championed by the library, and it partners with so many amazing organizations. So really getting to see that whole network kind of laid out, and how all of these different parts work together to make these amazing programs come true. That was mind-blowing. Absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved the people that I got to work with at the library. They were lovely, creative, supportive individuals. Obviously, I love them so much because I'm still there. And the other part was just getting to also see, obviously with indirect service, it's a little bit different in terms of getting feedback, but I was able to, since I did stay on for second term, I was able to sort of see some of the fruits of my labors, and getting to see some feedback from patrons that were really appreciative of some of the new programs that we were demoing, some of the changes that we were making, and getting to see, little kids getting excited about having opportunities to, like, all these exciting opportunities was a really great feeling.
All right, well, we've talked about the good. Now we have to flip it. And I want you to fill me in on maybe things that you didn't know you would be doing in your role, or just some challenges that maybe the role brought about that you didn't anticipate.
Well, for me, actually, the things I didn't know about my role were kind of big, but in a really good way, actually, which was, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't super enthusiastic. I mean, I was glad I was hired for the job, but I was like, are you kidding me, Iowa? I was like, it's like the most boring mix of Iowa and Minnesota possible. I was like, Iowa. And then within like the day after I accepted, I had a video chat with my supervisor, Jason Taylor, and he's like, yeah, sky's the limit. You can pick whatever you want to do, pretty much. Like, you just have to meet, like, I was like, he's like, do you have any ideas for projects? And I was like, being me, I was like, yes, like 6. Can you let me get a pen and paper? And so, because I really just thought, I was like, okay, I'll get a sign. Like, you want this fit, you want, like, we're doing an event on this, go create a plan for it. And it really is like, me and my partner Lydia are able to like come up with creative ideas, and I've learned how to use like Illustrator and Photoshop to create like what I think are really good looking materials for it, and really be able to be like, hey, I want to go out and reach out to an organization like the library. I think that'd be a beneficial partnership. And then being like, okay, go do it. Do it now. Like, and that's been incredibly surprising. Challenges, I would say the biggest for me, partially because my job has been completely changed by the pandemic. It's been hard for me at times to find the sense of like, what am I doing? Is it having an impact? Because we've only, for at least the first few months I was there, I was really just creating digital content, which is important, don't get me wrong, but also just feeling like, I think people crave, even with everything going on, even if it's over Zoom, crave conversation and things like that, and finding ways to like, not just well, here's this activity sheet. I'm going to go put it out. Hopefully someone sees it. Being critical and being like, okay, how can I make sure that I don't feel like I'm doing stuff in a void. And then honestly, just some of the financial it's been a little financially stressful. And I just want to say that's for me. Like, cause everyone's different. Like I said, I have loans I'm paying off. I pay for my own car insurance, and I do not have a completely clean driving record, if we're being totally honest. I am paying off my car on my own. And I'm paying for my rent and my food and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's a lot. It's a lot to take on, especially, coming from wildlife. I'm not making engineering money. It's just not in the cards. But I feel it's certainly not a new struggle for me. And I found ways to make it through. I have, some of my roommates have second jobs, some of them don't. Like, it's just really about where your financial situation is at. But for me, that's been one stressor that I resolved over time through a couple of different things. So yeah, sorry. I know I talk way too much, but.
But yes, very good points. And actually some of that I can bounce off of. I mean, so with AmeriCorps VISTA, another big challenge is going to be the financial situation. When you are working through AmeriCorps VISTA, you are given a living stipend, which is supposed to be enough so that you can pay your bills and exist while doing service, but it's not meant to be like a working salary. To that effect, we were very much encouraged to try to apply to as many benefits as possible. You're very much made aware of what kind of benefits are available in terms of benefits for renters assistance, benefits for electricity bills assistance, food assistance, so like SNAP programs and things like that, Medicaid, all sorts of different types of benefits that can really help offset some of those costs. And it can be a little intimidating at first, especially if you've never worked with that sort of thing before. But they do a really good job of kind of letting you know what are the opportunities that are out there. So that's something that I definitely would encourage anyone that is interested, is really taking a look at their financial situation, making sure that this isn't going to be too much of a strain, and making sure that they're not afraid to look at all the different benefits, because there are some really great programs that are out there to really help offset those costs and can make it so that you don't have more stress than is necessary to deal with the experience. Another common challenge with AmeriCorps VISTA, it wasn't one that I personally struggled with too much, but it was one that I saw from some of my peers. And that's that every different VISTA site is going to operate a little bit differently. And they don't always have as good of an understanding of how the program works, because some of our partners are very new to the VISTA program. And so one thing that they really encourage within VISTA is to not be afraid to have regular meetings with your supervisor, to talk about your goals, to talk about what you want to achieve, and to make sure that you're really sticking to that guide of wanting to provide indirect service, because that is kind of new for a lot of organizations. So making sure that you're not in a situation where you feel like you're being too pressured, or, a lot of our VISTAs are a bit younger and don't have as much experience in the workforce. Really, you do have the support from the program. If you're feeling like you're a little bit pressured or you're not in a great situation, you have an amazing system of support. And it's all about just not being afraid to speak up for yourself and really advocate for your needs. I think that's very important.
Now, I know you said you both came out of college. What soft skills or what other skills do you think that you had that made you good candidates for AmeriCorps and AmeriCorps VISTA? Like, if somebody was looking to get into AmeriCorps, is there other things that they could take in high school? Are there soft skills that they can work to develop to help their chances of getting hired?
I would say, well, I think the biggest thing to do when you're looking for any development is to ask questions. This is a general life tip. Just is to go out and make sure and find out a lot about your organizations. And, the great thing about AmeriCorps is it doesn't require that, I'm a natural research, I'm working for a land trust, an environmental position, and my background is in natural resources. But like I said, there's someone who's actually in a leadership position, unlike me, who has a background in English. So you don't necessarily have to have anything. What I do recommend at this age, especially in high school, is to ask questions. And by that, I mean, if you're interested in design work, going to like maybe a print center of some sort, or like a local design studio, because even if they can't get you a paying job right then, volunteer, like I assume in high school you're getting free rent and healthcare and everything. That is the time to go just try stuff. And you'd be surprised. I mean, you should do it politely, don't demand, but like just being like, hey, you know, whatever your interest is, or if you want to check something out, is to reach out and ask questions. Preparation wise, something that I would recommend everyone do is work on communication skills. I say this as someone who minored in communications. And I would say specifically, like, to, if you can in any way, like take a community college class, maybe in public speaking, or I actually think public speaking is an overrated communications class. The most impactful class I had by far in college out of any of my courses was something on small group communication, because that class really examined the flaws of how we often speak to one another and how we, you know, set expectations and blame one another when we're working on something. And AmeriCorps, even if you're working more independently, is incredibly team-based. In whatever workplace you need to be in, you need to be able to communicate effectively. And I think that would be the biggest thing, you know, for an AmeriCorps interview, for a team-based AmeriCorps position, you know, try to have as much experience collaborating and like communicating with others that you can.
So I would kind of agree with that in the sense that you don't really need to have an extensive resume. Most VISTAs that I met were fresh to college and don't have too much work experience, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But yeah, definitely skills such as good communication, having strong empathy, having a passion for equity. These are the things that they're really going to be looking for. As far as the kind of knowledge base that you need to be able to do these tasks, AmeriCorps VISTA does provide a lot of those educational opportunities once you've been accepted for the position. So for example, prior to becoming a VISTA, we are required to attend a pre-service orientation, which is generally 3.5 days, can be in person, or I believe they're now doing virtual sessions as well. And during that, it's a very intensive course where you get to learn a lot about all sorts of things in terms of statistics about poverty, how it intersects with race, discussions about how to ask for assistance from other nonprofit organizations, how to network, how to talk about your program, like all of these different things that you would need to know in that position. So they do a great job of trying to prepare you for your role. And there are also opportunities to continue to learn throughout the program. So you can really enrich those skills as you're working on it, but just really having that right mindset. And so any opportunities to volunteer or participate in internships for nonprofits would be a really great way to prepare for that, just to make sure that your heart is really going to be in it and it is something that you actually want.
I just want to pause for a minute, just because our audience is probably listening intently on us lollygagging. If anybody has a question that they're just dying to ask before they forget, you're welcome to either put it in the chat or unmute your microphone and ask any questions. And then at the end, we'll also save some time just so you can have a little Q&A too. So does anybody have any questions right off the bat right now? Otherwise, we'll keep plodding through. All right, such good participants. So this is a little bit different, but MJ, since you're finished with the program, do you think that, obviously you got a job in the organization that you were a VISTA in, so that would seem like a success story, but do you feel like you gained invaluable knowledge, not only for the organization of Cedar Rapids, but are you glad that you did AmeriCorps because it primed you for other things? And the same question for you once, I know you're not finished yet, Darcy, but if you could talk a little bit about that too. So MJ, you can go ahead and go first.
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, when you're looking for a career, there's a lot of different things to consider. There's a lot of different goals to have. So when I was initially looking for a job, when I was fresh out of college, I was mostly just looking for something that was going to give me some stability and help me be a little bit more independent, pay my bills, all the usual stuff. But I realized that I didn't really find it very fulfilling. And so that was what kind of led me to start looking around for something else. And I kind of went with it just because I was like, oh, this is at a library. That sounds like fun. I like the description, et cetera, et cetera. But getting to work at the library as a VISTA really changed my perspective, like I said a little bit earlier, on what libraries do, how that works. And it honestly gave me a very different focus for my future going forward. So, and I have regular discussions with my parents because they're lovely people and they're great sounding boards. And I was talking to them and I'd be going home saying, I think I actually kind of want to work in libraries. And I never would have considered that position or that route if I hadn't had that kind of foot in the door first step. And I know a lot of other people that, they start out just as vistas, but then they learn about maybe not within that specific organization, but it opens them up to the opportunities within the nonprofit sector or within these public institutions that are doing some really great work that otherwise may not have been viable or approachable. It can be a little intimidating from the outside, but getting to come on in and learn how this works and learn all the people that are involved, it really gives you a different perspective, and it can definitely prepare you for roles in that field in the future. So I think that's really cool.
Great.
And to kind of piggyback off of that, like in kind of a, because I completely agree that like it can open up a lot of opportunities that way. Obviously, I'm still in the middle of it, and I can get to that in a sec. But since I did, my boyfriend also graduated from college, although he's an overachiever who graduated a year early. He's in ecology, and he was applying for grad schools. And he got into the University of Pennsylvania, which is an Ivy League. So I like to say for them until he finishes his master's, he'll technically be the smarter one in the relationship temporarily. But he personally credits, it's not like, he's like, my GPA was good, but it wasn't great. He's like, they really were interested in his experience serving an AmeriCorps term. Like by far and away, that was like, he credits that with him getting into the University of Pennsylvania. Now, I don't mean that to say I guarantee that you like will be accepted into an Ivy League, but it really stands out on a resume to be like, hey, I took this time to really serve my community and do it in a very immediate way. Like, even with VISTA programming, like it just stands out because it's a very unique, people say study abroads are unique. I feel like AmeriCorps is much more impactful than that because you're out doing stuff and you're trying to really solve direct problems. For me, in terms of career readiness, I think it's helped me in a lot of ways and is going to continue to help me. Immediately, I was asked what I wanted to do in terms of what career development I wanted. And for me, that was animal handling. Not because which I want to be clear, that's actually a career skill for someone in wildlife. It's not like I just want to pet cute things. You need to know how to safely, effectively handle things. And they connect me with a local raptor researcher, not researcher, educator. And I've learned so much from her just in terms of just because of the person she is. She's mentored me in terms of where do I want to go. Is getting a PhD really what I want to do? Because in my head, at the start of this year, I was like, I'm going to get a PhD, and things like that. I'm getting to go out trapping and bird banding soon. Safe trapping, humane trapping, not like I'm going to kill a beaver trapping. As part of a research student. So they have been really great at networking me with people who can give me a lot of career guidance and information for myself. I know for my coworker, Lydia, she recently got certified as a naturalist educator. They supported her training for that program. And so obviously, as someone who's still in the program, I can't tell you where it's leading for me, but I mean, I was speaking with the person I'm supposed to be doing banding with, and he was extremely impressed by my resume. He's like, you have an amazing resume, and he wanted to know more about my AmeriCorps position. So that would be what I would say.
Right.
I did want to mention one more thing just off of that, is that whole concept of getting you ready for a different type of career or a different job, a little more permanent after VISTA. VISTA does offer a lot of resources for that as well, because again, most of the people that we work with are college students or fresh college students. There's a ton of resources in terms of getting your resume ready, practicing interviews, going over good interview skills. And then as far as post-VISTA life, there is either a education award or a cash stipend available, depending on what your needs are, which you can use to pay off some of your loans, to further your education and get a different degree, or that cash stipend can be really great to help you relocate to your new job site, get started with apartment costs, all sorts of things like that. So they really do put a lot of effort into helping you make that transition from your VISTA position into a more permanent job. Victoria, you're still muted.
Sorry, the guy is vacuuming, so I didn't want it. I wanted to have it muted like as long as I could. So you said you kind of worked backwards, but did either one of you take volunteer positions in similar organizations before you applied for the AmeriCorps that you eventually took on?
I volunteered. Where did I volunteer in college? I volunteered as part of a class in college with the Sierra Club in Minnesota, and that was my first kind of introduction to environmental justice and environmental policy. If anyone knows about the Line Free Expansion Minnesota, I was specifically working on that campaign, and that's how I decided that I hate phone banking and needed to die. But I learned a lot from that. I also volunteered over 1,000 hours in high school as a naturalist educator volunteer naturalist educator at Brookfield Zoo, which is in the Chicagoland area. And which is how I learned that I liked talking to people about animals. And then I also did a similar job for the Raptor Center, which is a educational and raptor rehab clinic that exists at the University of Minnesota. And I did that for 2 years. So that's kind of all the volunteering capacity that I was able to do. It was hard in college just for me because I had to I also need to pay rent while doing career development and also not failing anything. So, but that's been about most of my volunteer experience prior to this.
Yeah, my personal volunteering experience honestly did not relate back to the library too much. I volunteered at a animal shelter for several years, volunteered for a Day of Caring event where it was all about gardening and planting a sustainable garden for an area. So I definitely did some volunteer work, but my degrees were in English and creative writing. So I did always have an interest in literacy and promoting literacy. That's kind of my connection. But I did know VISTAs that did have a more direct route. So for example, Catherine McCauley Center is a organization that works in Cedar Rapids. And I knew people that during their time in college had done internships or had done volunteering work with the center. And then later after graduation, ended up going after a VISTA position and working as a VISTA at that center. So that is definitely a route for some people. So if there are VISTA or volunteer positions at a VISTA site that you're interested in, that's definitely an option. And it's nice to have a familiar face. It definitely changes the process a little bit, makes the transition a little easier.
So as far as young people who are on the cusp of, being 18 and being ready to apply for these programs, what kind of traits would you say makes a great AmeriCorps/AmeriCorps VISTA? Like what are they looking for? What kind of people would thrive in these kind of positions?
I would say that you're passionate is one of the big things, because I know that might be obviously I came to a position where I knew I was passionate about education. I was passionate about nature and ecology. But even if you're not, you need to be able to be because it's hard. We work really hard, and like we said, we're getting a living stipend. We're not making a ton of excess money. So you have got to go and be yeah, I want to go contribute to my community every day. You have to let that drive you. And I feel like that comes part and parcel with if you're going to be coming into this position, you're doing it for career development and service, not for profit. I did it to make sure I could make a living while also gaining a ton of career experience. And that's been it. I didn't come in being wow, I'm going to pay off all my loans working for AmeriCorps.
Gonna retire off of this.
And I was I'm just gonna throw it up. God. I also think like I said, you have got to be a team player, especially in positions that are off, really out in the field. Our my stewardship team, not mine, but the one that works with, they rely on each other all the time. They're with each other, and they're doing hard labor. They're, especially they're lugging trees, they're removing invasives. If you're not going to be there for each other, or if you have an issue, address that politely and effectively with someone, it's just not going to work. I think you need to be flexible and adaptable. You have to be willing to kind of take, these I feel like your position can change due to a pandemic, or something like that. What the needs of the organization can change. And I think that's part of it. And I think you need to I would say stay humble would be a big thing. Because if you're like, I need my work to shine far and above, you're not coming in with that right attitude. Like, I'm not like, you need to be, like for me, like I talked about feeling like I wasn't having an impact. I wasn't looking that I was like, I wanted to have more attention for me. I just wanted to make sure our work was doing a good job of its goal of connecting the community to nature. You have to be like, it's about getting to our goal. It's not about me per se. Right. You can ask for things like career development, but when it comes to your day-to-day work, do it with thinking like forward about how it's impacting others around you and what your objectives are, I would say.
Yeah, and a big part of it all comes down to that passion. Like, why are you choosing to pursue this project? Because as you said, it's not going to be a financial situation that's going to be great. Basically, the best I've thought of to describe what it is like to be a VISTA is that it's paid volunteering. You're doing a volunteer position and they're paying your expenses so that you can sustainably do that for up to a year or 2 years. So it's really not a traditional job in that sense, and you're not doing it, you shouldn't view it as a job. You shouldn't view it as just a career. It's this amazing opportunity to really make a difference in your community. And when that's what drives you, then some of those things don't matter as much, where you don't have to worry about the financials, or, my name is not going to be stamped on a lot of things, especially with this, there's a lot of behind the scenes work. So you're not going to be in a lot of that stuff. You're not going to necessarily get that recognition, but that's okay, because that's not what it's about. It's all about having that passion. And then the other big thing is being able to be open to new experiences. With VISTA position, it's a lot of working to address situations of poverty and inequality, income inequality specifically. And a lot of people come from different levels of privilege. I definitely come with a certain amount of privilege. So being able to step into that circle and have a really honest conversation about these things, you're going to be challenged, you're going to be exposed to new opinions and new thoughts, and being open to take all of that in and use that to your advantage to really benefit your community is what's important. So it's really being able to listen to that.
Awesome. Such great answers. Thank to both of you. I want to just leave a couple of minutes. Like I said, if any of our participants, attendees want to ask any questions, now's your chance. If you're really thinking about AmeriCorps, or you want to explore something that maybe we didn't touch on, you can ask a question in the chat, or you can just unmute your mic and you can ask MJ or Darcy anything that your heart desires.
Oh, Victoria?
Yeah.
There was one thing that I wanted to add on that didn't really fit in any of the questions you asked. Sure. So I kind of mentioned that, like, ask questions, especially, like I said, like state and national AmeriCorps programs, it's kind of like the catch-all umbrella for most of AmeriCorps programs. They can fit under it. But you can do a million different things. And so I recommend, if you're like, in like this, you can do short-term positions, you can do long-term positions, you can do part-time. Some positions come with like a living stipend. Some of them come with just the education award. So you'll either get the stipend plus the education award, or just the education award. Like, all of them have that. But some of them allow you to have a part-time job, like Borough Oak allows me to have an additional secondary position. Some don't. And I am also like that some AmeriCorps programs are, might be a better fit for you than others. Some of them, operate more effectively than others do. So go, like, reach out to that organization for clarification, and definitely reach out, if you can, to people who have done that specific program before. Especially bigger programs. Like, I know, like the Minnesota Iowa Conservation Corps has over 100 people. You'll probably be able to find somebody that you can ask about what, that program is like. So I would just make sure you do your due diligence about a position and where it's at.
Right. Thank you.
Now, please continue. Sorry.
That's a good point. So all of the AmeriCorps positions plus Vistas? Would Vista have a separate webpage, or are they all under the
So-
same umbrella?
I believe Vista does have their own webpage, and it also has like an online portal so that once you are a Vista alum, you have a portal online where you can access all of those resources, learn about new course opportunities, all of that stuff that's all available online.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of information just about the program in general if you're curious too.
Mhm. If you have any other questions, you can email my email, the Teen Services Librarian, Victoria-Fernandez @icpl.org.